an executive trainer was giving a seminar on this particular day, and he was trying to teach the folks to be able to see a little bit beyond. So he started out the session by taking this big white piece of paper, and it had a dot on it, just one dot. There was nothing else on it. And he said to the group that he was teaching, he said, "What do you see?" And all of them said, "I see a little dot. I see a black dot. All I see is a dot." And he said to them, "That's what your problem is. Nobody saw that there was a large piece of paper. All you saw was the little dot." That's a lot like what we often see. When we think about our lives, all we see is the here and now. We only know what we know. We do not see beyond because maybe our imagination isn't quite there. Maybe we don't have the capability of seeing it. Perhaps as human beings, we are somewhat limited. And this is what the Lord is trying to teach the Sadducees today. He's trying to tell them, you all need to look beyond because you only know what you know. And for the Sadducees, their understanding was very limited. This is a group of people that only believed and knew the first 5 books of the Bible. That was it. They only knew the Torah. So they didn't see anything outside of that. They were a group of people that did not believe, as Jesus and Luke tells us today, they did not believe in resurrection. So as a result, everything was in this life. So what did they do? They got very close to the Roman government because they wanted to make sure that they retained their wealth. They didn't want it to be compromised. They did not want to share it. They saw all of their blessings as God's gift to them. So anything that was prosperous, they saw as God is blessing us in this life because guess what? This is all there is. There's nothing beyond this life. But the Lord is trying to tell them, you need to see something more. When they ask him the question, which is an absolutely ridiculous question about there is one bride and there are 7 brothers, and she marries each of them, well, whose wife will she be in heaven? Jesus is saying to them, you all need to think beyond earthly institutions. You need to look beyond what you know here on earth, because what they were trying to say was there is no resurrection. How could it possibly be? So they ask an absurd question to Jesus, and he gives them a response which tests them, because he quotes and he refers to Exodus, which is one of the books that they believed in. And in Exodus, we hear how Moses cried out, "Lord, Lord," to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of the living. They had great respect for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they believed that they were alive with God. So Jesus makes this connection about, well, if they are alive, then our God is alive, and God wants us to be alive. He's referring here to heaven, to this afterlife. And to the people of Jesus' time, it wasn't just a given that there would be resurrection. It wasn't just a given of what that afterlife was, because it was all about the here and now. And actually, the Sadducees, they came to an end because when the temple was destroyed around 70 AD, well, their whole culture was destroyed too, because they didn't see beyond. All they saw was a little dot. Now for us, when we think about resurrection, what do we think about? What do we think that heaven is going to be like? How do we describe it to a child? How do we ourselves embrace what heaven may one day be? And it's difficult for us because it's beyond our comprehension. What God has in store for us is so much greater than what we know here in this life. So very often people think, depending upon what their circumstance is in life, let's say for an 8-year-old, they think that heaven is going to be like the fall festival, day in and day out, 24/7, bumper cars and teacups. That's all they think it's going to be. Maybe for someone else, they think that heaven, who struggles financially, heaven's going to be where the roads are paved with gold, and there's going to be no financial worries. Maybe if we're someone who has issues with other people and relationship problems, we think, well, in heaven it's going to be just all wonderful, everybody gets along. Well, it's going to be all of those things and more. It's going to be more, because our human mind cannot comprehend what God has in store for those who love him. So we take our earthly impressions and what we know on this earth, we try to transfer it into this utopia. But you see, it's beyond what that utopia is. But our mind can't always understand that. It's sort of like the caterpillar who dies, makes a cocoon, and what happens to the caterpillar? It's totally transformed. The butterfly has absolutely no significance or really no connection, doesn't look anything like the caterpillar was. And it can fly and it can do all these things. That's because life is different for that butterfly. For us, life is going to be different. It will be our life, but it's going to be something that we cannot even imagine here. So we have to think that here on this earth, probably what is the closest that we ever get to heaven? What is the closest that we ever get to heaven? It's probably when we have that moment when we take the Lord in his real presence in the Eucharist, when he gives us his body and blood, when he shares with us divine food, when we come around the Eucharistic table and we bring ourselves here to him. That's probably about the closest that we're going to get here on earth, because we ourselves become tabernacles, places where Jesus can rest, where he can be. And in that moment when we receive the real presence of Christ, it is that opportunity for us to be transformed and to maybe build some of the kingdom here on earth. But also, since there is resurrection, but the second question we can say is, well, what does that mean for us? Does it make a difference in how we live our lives? I hope so. I really hope so, because since we know that God has something in store for us that is so magnificent and so wonderful, and that we're going to go through this period of time between here and there, where we can let go of our weaknesses, where we become perfected, when we are so filled with God's love, that should give us hope. It should give us hope for what tomorrow is going to bring. So when we don't get a good grade on a test and we studied, when maybe we don't get the job promotion, when maybe there's an issue in a family, we don't get all dramatic about it. We give it to God, and we have hope for what tomorrow is going to bring, because we hope that one day all will be perfect with him. And we have to pass through this life and journey through it in order to be able to get there. The thought today from our gospel should be one of great hope for what the future is going to bring. It's not all about the here and now. Do not live for just today, because if we think that it's all about this world, we're going to be sorely disappointed. Sorely disappointed. But when we carry that gift of hope for what God has in store for us, well, our mind can see beyond only what we see with our eyes. Maybe we can see with the heart. During this month of November, we remember all who have died, all who have passed away, and the candles that are up here still from our All Souls service. And as we see the flames dancing there on the candles, dancing on the wick, upon the wax, it's an opportunity. It should remind us that one day someone's going to be here praying for us. One day, one of those candles might represent our soul. And we can only hope that people will be lifting our name to God and praying for us. Of course, we'll be with God. That's what our hope and prayer is. And in actuality, we'll be praying for you and for them, for all who have been left behind. My friends, we have to look and to see how the candles dance, and they go every which way, that flame may go. And may that be able to bring our minds to a place way beyond this earth, because we have to see far beyond just a little dot. We have to see far beyond just what this world can bring. We have to see what God has in store for us. And it's much greater than a big white piece of paper. It is all eternity.